Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Philo, and in today's episode, we're going to start the long, crazy journey of the 2.0 questline. This is just the base game. The patches will be covered separately in their own bit. So just sit back and watch, and let's get started, shall we? We start off in the Limsa's bar of the Drowning Wench, where we talk to Bataran, who is in need of a capable adventurer. He thanks us for taking the time to come visit him, and since he's sure we're busy, he gets straight to the point. He needs someone trustworthy to head up north of Aleport and find out what some suspicious-looking people are up to that have been sneaking around. He realizes it doesn't sound like much. However, recently the Sahagins pirates came around, and it has left people feeling nervous. Bataran is interrupted by the Chief Yellowjacket, Commodore Raynar. Turns out he came after finding out that he had found an adventurer who was interested in the offer and came to give some information about what's going on in the most recent reports. He tells us an unfamiliar vessel was found off the coast of Aleport near the Isles of Umbra. This comes to his attention a few weeks after a squad of soldiers did a routine patrol of the region, including the Satasha Seagot, and found that a family of Coworls had taken up residence in the cave, something that doesn't concern them. Though in light of the situation, it may be wise to search Satasha again. Unfortunately, with the Sahagin testing the defenses daily, he's limited to the forces at his disposal, and the line is stretched already, which is why he sought the service of a competent adventurer to conduct the investigation. Any aid we can offer would be greatly appreciated. Satasha is located in the western Lenosia. For more detailed instructions on how to reach the place, he suggests we consult Vimilpa down at the docks in the lower decks. Bataran wishes us luck before we leave. Down at the docks, Vimilpa tells us that we should board a ferry bound for Aleport. Just outside of Aleport, we find a seasoned adventurer. He was already expecting us since the Yellowjackets had sent word that we were coming. He tells us the occupants of those caves are rumored to be as numerous as they are bloodthirsty. Despite what we may or may not have heard, going into such a place would be foolish, and therefore we need companions. He tells us to head north and report to the Yellowjacket scout at the front of Satasha, and he will fill us in on further details. The Yellowjacket scout says that he can't take any more of waiting and hopes that we are there for duty. Upon learning that we are here, he thanks the gods. The Yellowjackets have been on the lookout for pirate activity ever since the unknown vessel was sighted. They had received word that men of questionable quality had been passing in and out of Satasha, and wasn't very surprised, as they suspected pirates would choose a den to hide out in. This information would cause panic among the civilians, as kidnappings are still fresh in people's minds. Our task is to poke around the caves and find out exactly who we're dealing with. We make our way through the wildlife in the cave to find the first challenge, one of the Coworls named Chopper. Taking him out, we find a switch on the wall that opens up a secret passage. Once inside, we discover the Serpent Reaver's hideout. We end up finding their captain, Madison. After taking out his men and getting his health low enough, he runs away from us. Chasing him, we end up in an open room called Dead Man's Drink, the living quarters of the Serpent Reavers. Making our way through more Serpent Reavers, we find the captain's quarters and make our way in with a key dropped by one of the men. Once the door is open, we learn that the captain is nowhere to be found and only a stronger Shallowtail Reaver is inside. After defeating him, he drops a key to the Wave Rider gate back in the Dead Man's Drink. Once through the door, we find that Madison is there once again. This time, he not only has backup, but releases scurvy dogs to attack us. But again, Madison runs away when he's at low health, and we chase him into Miss Beard's cave. after dealing with several groups of Reavers. We engage Den the Orcatooth and defeat him. Heading back to Limsa, we meet a man who is going to attempt the mission, but we finished it before them. A cat girl in the party tells him their chance will come soon, to which he agrees. They cheer themselves up before Dolores turns back to us and tells us they want to perform such feast of heroisms that earns them a place in the songs of every alehouse in Eorzea. They want to write a legend that will inspire adventurers to follow in their shining example. He asks us if we have a goal, large or small, it doesn't matter. If you have a goal, reach for it and you will reach higher. That purpose can sustain you through times of hardship and to keep your eye on the prize. He says our goals are the same and he wishes us fortune in our endeavors before leaving. Bataran then tells us it sounds like we left them in pieces and whatever they were planning has come to an end, and all is well that ends well. On behalf of Limsa, he thanks us for helping him solve the mystery and that we've lived up to our reputation. He couldn't ask for more than that. He assumes we are tired, but if not, we might be interested in taking on another job. He has had a request from his sister guild in Gridania. For them to ask help like this, we can bet the task won't be easy, but after dealing with Sahagin, we are most likely up to the task. He asks if we're ready to hear about the job, and he tells us that all he knows is it comes from Gridania. But whatever it is, he doesn't think it will pose a problem for us. If we are interested, we should head to Gridania and meet with Mother Mion. And finally, he wishes us good luck. When we visit Mother Mion, she tells us to take a seat wherever we want before realizing who we are. She is excited to see us, and when we tell her that Bataran has sent us, she states that the foul-mouthed rogue sent her word that an adventurer might be showing up for the job. Since she knows us, this makes things a lot easier. She prepares to tell us about the task at hand when Lewin interrupts her, asking if anyone has stepped forward in regards of helping them. Mion informs him that she has found someone, and they are highly recommended. Lewin, upon seeing us, is happy that we are the ones that take up his job and tells us that we have a knack for appearing when most needed. He also thanks us for answering the call. Time is of the essence, and so he will get to the point. They wish for us to take care of a potential threat. Mion says that beneath the central shroud there lies an underground burial site called the Tamtara Deepcroft. It was once a Gamorrean site, but the Gridanians have long buried their dead there. Lewin tells us, as of late, the shadowy figures have been seen sulking about the Deepcroft more and more. Based on what witnesses have said, they suspect that these people belong to the Lambs of Dalamud, a doomsday cult that has sprung up prior to the calamity. They have proven to be dangerous in the past and cannot be left alone to do whatever it is they are up to. Normally, he would send his own men out to take care of it, but ever since the calamity, his soldiers spread thin dealing with Ixal. Because of this, they must entrust the task to others, and if he can rely on us to handle the matter. After we agree, he tells us that we have his gratitude, and once we have made preparations to make our way to the Deepcroft and let the guards know who we are, he will update us on any latest developments. Mion tells us to be careful, and may the crystal guide us and keep us safe. Upon reaching the Deepcroft, we meet up with Dolores Bear from back in Limsa. He is unsurprised to see us here. We may have taken the prize in Limsa, but this time he will win, or he is no true adventurer. Inside, we talk to God's Quiver Bow, who thanks us for helping out. He reminds us that we are tasked to enter the Deep Croft and purge it of the lambs of Dalamud, and reminds us that they are a cult that emerged just before the calamity that put an end to the Sixth Astral Era. Believing the Lesser Moon Dalamud would deliver them from the devastation, they took the Lesser Moon to be their god. They became disappointed when Dalamud exploded into 1,000 pieces before it completed its descent. And even though they saw their god turn to ash, they do not question their fate, and if anything, have stoked the flames of their belief. They now believe that the non-believers interfered with his descent, and it is now their sacred duty to avenge him. Whatever they are up to in the Deep Croft, it is sure to be no good, and for the sake of Gridania and Eorzea, we must put an end to the madness. Inside, we come face to face with the members of the cult, and making our way further in, we find 3 altars. Even after taking out the gravediggers and Dalamud priests, they still manage to summon the Voidwalkers that protect the orbs, and once you are able to dispel all 3 orbs, you meet the final boss. Galvanth the Dominator was a Gilmorian king who rested within Tamtara. The cultists summoned a powerful mind flayer using the body of King Galvanth as a host. Luckily, we disrupt this ritual and the corrupted Galvanth is taken care of. Returning to Mother Mion, she tells us she has heard our adventure in the Deep Croft was a success. She didn't expect us to fail, since we have a habit of succeeding even when the most difficult of missions are stacked against us. Rest assured that despite that, she is impressed, even if not surprised. Lord Lewin also asked her to pass his thanks. She tells us death is becoming more common of an occurrence lately. Times being what they are, the guild is constantly inundated with petitions and are hard-pressed to find enough hands to deal with them all, which means no shortage of work for people like us. It also means many inexperienced adventurers attempt to overreach themselves, often with predictable consequences. To illustrate the point, she looks over at a group in the corner of the bar. There are 3 people standing there, looking defeated. The archer yells about Aver being gone and it being all the conjurer's fault. How it shouldn't have taken her forever to heal and that he would still be alive. The conjurer says that she tried, but he bolted out of her range before she could finish the spell. The Lalafell yells that he's done with this pathetic excuse for a party and that he's leaving. The archer also says she's leaving, but not before telling the conjurer she never liked her and only suffered her presence for her healing. But she couldn't even do that one thing right. She even claims the conjurer has brought this on herself. Finally, she tells her to get rid of Aver's head and stop carrying it around. The conjurer begs them not to leave her before running off. Mother Mion informs us that this is a common occurrence these days, and that it is why she's grateful for adventurers of our experience. She knows she can send men like us into battle without worrying that we may not return, or at least not as much as others. She lets us know that she has received a report from her counterpart in Ul'dah, and that they seek the service of a reliable adventurer. We are nothing if not reliable. If we are interested in the task, we only need to say the word and she will share the details with us. As she mentioned before, the request comes from the Adventurers Guild in Ul'dah. Once we arrive, we should seek out Momodi. She runs the quicksand and has the same role as Mother Mion and Bataran. Most likely we will be sent to the midst of danger, but Mion believes that we will pull through unscathed. She sends us off and wishes us good luck. Upon meeting Momodi, she welcomes us to the quicksand, and judging by our determined expression, she assumes we aren't there for ale and asks us if we are the person that Mother Mion sent word that was coming. She also made a point in saying we are the adventurer of the moment and that there's no small praise coming from her. Thinking we'd rather get down to business instead of chatter, she tells us the petitioner will be here any moment. We hear someone yelling about how if they were in the sun much longer, they would have been set on fire and would like some ale. Momodi turns to the man to tell him he has excellent timing because we are the adventurer who will be taking on their petition. He looks at us and tells us that we are a strapping young lad and is happy to hear we are taking on his petition. He tells us his name is Petition, formerly of the Sultana Sworn. He also thanks us for agreeing to lend our aid. It turns out the petition was submitted by an acquaintance of his at the Aminja and Sons mineral concern. A situation has occurred at the Copperbell mines. Giants have seized control of the place. The giants are known as Hectoncheers. They are fearsome creatures who were sealed within the depths of the mines during the bygone Thorn dynasty. It seems they have managed to break through the layer of rock that served as their prison and now prowl the tunnels where the miners go. The creatures are justified in their fury for the treatment they received by the people's ancestors. Their presence has forced suspension of all mining activities on the site. Momodi comments that the Thorn dynasty had come to an end over 300 years ago, to which Petition tells her she knows her history well. He continues that the people of that age used the giants to work in the mines. They did this through enchanted helms that were able to bind the ferocious creatures to their will. But the enchantments eventually failed and the slaves rose up against their masters. In desperate attempt to stop the giants' unbridled fury, they collapsed the mine's lowermost levels and in doing so ended the great giant revolt, where they stayed buried under 100,000 tons of rock. Momodi comments that she saw the article 2 days ago about the mines being reopened to meet the rising demand for building materials. It seems they dug a bit too deep and freed the giant. To think they'd still be alive and kicking after 3 centuries. That is a long time to nurse a grudge. Petition agrees and says that this is what makes them so dangerous. For the sake of peace and prosperity, they must be subdued. This task they would have us undertake. He doesn't deny that the mission is dangerous, but their need is great, and so he begs us to put an end to all of this. Once we agree, Petition is relieved, as he feared we might have reservations given the conditions, but he assures us it's for the best. Momodi tells us the Copperbell mines are located in western Thanalan and to take care. Petition tells us to talk to a man named Painted Mesa here in the quicksand. He knows the Copperbell mines well, and he thinks it would be good for us to speak with him. When we approach Painted Mesa, and once he learns that we are the adventurer who is going to deal with the mess in the Copperbell mines, he tells us we've got guts, but he also hopes we have the skills to go with it. The giants left the place in a pretty bad state. The Copperbell was old when the second Ul dynasty was still young, and it was abandoned centuries ago. If it hadn't have been that they were in such a shortage of minerals, the mines would have never been reopened. They knew about the giants beforehand, but also assumed that they were all dead since it had been centuries since they were buried underneath, but they were wrong. The miners dug up more than they bargained for, one swing too many, and they found themselves face to face with giants. Unless the giants can be slain, the nation's recovery will come to a halt, without them having the materials to build with. If we talk to one of the stone torches at the entrance, they will be able to let us in. He tells us the hope of the nation rests on our shoulders, and best of luck to us. When we approach the stone torch, he tells us there has been an incident inside the Copperbell mines, and that for our own safety we should stay away from the area. After we inform him that we are here to stop the giants from rampaging any further, he tells us he didn't think Papa Sean would find someone so quickly, if at all. The giants are fine to wreak havoc inside the mines, but eventually they will want to come outside. The sooner we see to them, the better. When we first enter the mines, we find Spriggans and Goblins. However, we soon encounter our first giant when he breaks through the wall. He proves to be no challenge, and quickly we make our way through the rest of the Goblin, Spriggans, and Lightning Sprites. We soon enter a room after blowing up the wall and are attacked by Spriggans, until finally we meet our second giant, Kodos. Unfortunately for him, we are stronger and easily defeat him and move on. We find a lift and ride it down, traveling deeper into the mines. On this level, we meet more Spriggan and Goblins, but we also encounter errant souls and blasting caps. The blasting caps drop us fire sand that allows us to continue through the mines because we can blast the walls using the sand. We soon encounter our next challenge, Icarus Ayer. At first, our attacks seem to cause him minimal damage, and things seem hopeless, but unfortunately for him, by coaxing a bomb out of hiding, we are able to break the Ayer into many pieces, making him vulnerable to our attacks. In rooms with the blue rock walls, we find more creatures living in the tunnels and make our way through while slaying each one. We meet another giant that breaks through the wall, but he too is weak, and we destroy him without worry. Finally, we come to the final room where we meet the boss of the dungeon. Taking on Gygus the Great, we see that he still wears the helm from back when he was a slave, meaning he's been alive for 300 years. It shows as Gygus is no pushover, and while we are attacking him, he breaks the wall, freeing one of his people to continue breaking the walls to free more of them. We managed to defeat Gygus, though, without more coming through. In a small trivia, if you are in Western Thanaland traveling to Cape Westwind, there is a tunnel you can travel through that has a fate that pops called There Might Be Giants. Besides the name being a reference to an American alternative rock band, here you fight another giant with a helm on his head like all the others, meaning he somehow escaped the tunnels and roamed the area before his unfortunate end by your hand. After defeating the giants in the Copperbell mines, we return to the quicksand to talk to Painted Mesa. He calls us the conqueror of Copperbell and thanks us for our help, and now they can return to their mining operations and Ul'dah will have the materials it needs to rebuild. The entire nation is in our debt for this. He will inform Papa Sean of the good news next time he encounters him. He lets us know we should talk to Momodi, for she will be happy to see we have returned in one piece. Our conversation is interrupted by a scream and someone yelling no. We run to the scene to find a man interrogating a woman and claiming she stole from him. She claims that she didn't steal anything from him and that she bought the item with her own money. Looking down on her, he claims all refugees are the same and can't even afford a mole meat, let alone a cut of fancier dodo meat. Tells her to give him the item or he'll make her wish she would never set foot in Ul'dah. He tells her he should turn her over to the brass blades, but he's a reasonable man. If she agrees to serve him, no matter what he requires, he won't tell the authorities. She claims she has done nothing wrong and even swears by it. She begins to look around for aid before laying eyes on us and begging us to aid her. She swears on her mother's grave to us that she didn't steal anything and bought the item with her money, as she only wanted to treat her children to a decent meal. Of course, we run in to help her, to which the man asks us if we are this dog's master in a mocking tone, before saying he's had enough, ordering his men to teach us a lesson. After slaying giants, these men are easily taken down and quickly bring them to their knees. One man shouts that he isn't getting paid enough for this, and the others run off with him, leaving the merchant on his own. The woman tells us thank you for helping her when we begin to have a headache. We see two men watching the refugees, talking about how more and more of them are coming to the city every day. And it's been 5 years since the calamity, but they show up now more than ever. Unfortunately, most tried to make most of their life, even with trades cut off and their lands left barren. But it was only a matter of time before they abandoned their homes and tried to seek a new life here in the city. Even though the calamity affected all nations, Ul'dah has a reputation for being prosperous, and so it is only natural refugees would try to come here first. One of the men hopes that they don't cause problems in the city, even though he sympathizes with their issue. The other man assures that if things go bad, the immortal flames or the brass blade would most likely welcome their help. The man can't believe that the people who defended us from the Garlean Empire would patrol the streets to keep the riffraff away. However, the other man assures him that not all refugees are bad and will earn an honest living. The men watch the refugees buy dodo tenderloins, one of them being the woman we defended, before one of them remarks that the whole city is on its way to recovering, but its people see no end to the suffering. Coming to from our vision, the woman we aided asks us if we are all right, to which we say yes. The man asks if we are going to threaten a defenseless civilian. We tell him we watched the woman buy the meat, to which he claims is absurd. A voice yells out that they also saw the woman buy the meat and to leave her alone. He asks who said that and looks around but sees no one. In frustration, he says he will overlook this, but only this once, before running off. The woman thanks us once again and tells us that if we hadn't have come, she doesn't know what he would have done to her, and she can't even bear thinking of it before she too leaves. We hear the same voice tell us case closed, and we look to see Ida standing there greeting us. And we see Papa Limo next to her telling us that they've been keeping a close eye on us since we left Gridania. He tells us we did our job as envoy very well and never was defeated while in the face of danger. Ida tells us we are always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need, even if we earn nothing by doing so. Papa Limo says we have the qualities of an adventurer. This they are convinced of. Ida notes that we were kind of dragged into the business with the dodo meat. Papa Limo sarcastically thanks Ida for pointing it out before telling us that we have a gift, and we are most likely curious of the vision we bore witness to. He wants to help us understand it. Ida tells us that we aren't the only ones that possess this power, as they have a friend who also has this power, and they would like us to meet her. Papa Limo tells us meeting her is only the beginning, as they would also like us to lend our strength to the cause. In return, they would be happy to assist us on our adventuring endeavors in whatever way they are able to. If we would like to take them up on the offer, we should talk to Momodi, as she is a good friend of theirs, and she will tell us where to find them. Papa Limo waves goodbye, but before going, Ida tells us the name of their organization. It is called the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, and they are defenders of justice. But we shouldn't tell anyone besides Momodi because she already knows of them. And that's all for this week's episode. turn in next week where we continue the story of A Realm Reborn 2.0. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.